In the wake of recent terror attacks, the state of Texas is withdrawing from the Obama administration's refugee resettlement program. Governor Greg Abbott says the move is because the White House can't ensure that refugees resettled in the state do not pose a security risk. Abbott has sent a letter to the president stating Texas will pull out of the program on January 31st. So is the decision to withdraw from the refugee resettlement program the right move? That's our topic this half hour. We want to hear from you on our Fox 26 Facebook page. You can also weigh in on Twitter. Just send me a tweet at Sally Mack, Fox 26. Joining us live in the newsroom is our panel led by our senior legal analyst, Chris Tritico. We also have Democratic media consultant, Mustafa Tamiz. There they are. And former Harris County Republican Party Chair, Jared Woodfill. All right, so we've been talking about this for a while now, still threatening to pull out at the end of January.
Right, I thought we already tried this once and lost. We'll see what happens because, as I recall, they sued and lost. And so I don't know how the state now comes back, spends more tax money to relitigate something they already lost.
Well, I think it's the right decision upon the governor's part. I mean, we don't know who these folks are. The vetting process clearly is not in place. And so if you go and look at Germany, for example, you see Merkel backing off on her original decision to simply open the gates to Germany. And you see Germans responding in kind and basically handing her party huge losses. So I think the governor is looking out for Texans and for the security of Texans, and I think it's the right decision.
How do we say that the vetting process isn't working? This latest one, this person had been in the United States for years. He became a citizen in 2011, and now does what he does.
Well, I mean, look, I think what Americans see is people walking across Europe, and that's the visual that's in people's minds. The vetting process is that, 9 different agencies meet on a weekly basis for over 2 years on a single file. There's a series of interviews, there's biometrics, there's a lot of stuff that happens before somebody gets a small pool of people get to enter this country through a refugee process. So that's that's something that most people don't realize or even understand. This particular case that we're talking about, this person came when he was 7 years old. I don't care what kind of vetting you do. I mean, at age 7, how would you determine anything?
Yeah, he couldn't have been radicalized at 7 years old.
But we're not even just talking about one particular person, though. We're talking about a whole group of people where I think the Obama administration has even admitted that you cannot identify who these folks are. There are no documents in their country of origin that allow you to know who and what their groups they're associated with. And the reality is we have to be concerned about the safety and security of Texas.
It was this latest one that caused the governor to send this letter. And it was a person who came here and he was 7 years old. Right. And there's no way for Governor Abbott to say that this person at 7 was radicalized when he came here.
But let me go ahead.
I think go ahead.
I'm going to use.
I'll let you then. I'll go.
I'm going to use your word. The reality is 1 out of 4 people in Houston is from somewhere else, and it makes us a better city. And the reality is that, when even after World War II, there was a boat of Jews that were coming into the United States, and many people made the exact same arguments, and we're better off for letting people in than not.
Okay, go ahead.
But the reality is we have to protect the security interest of Texans first and foremost. And we know that the Syrian refugees, that there is a group. Now, for the most part, great folks, I agree. But it only takes 1, 2, 3 people that you can't vet properly that can result in thousands of Texans being killed. So I would rather err on the side of protecting Texans as opposed to a more liberal meet and greet agenda for the state. The
fact of the matter is that the last 5 or 6 attacks on the country, while they have come from within, have been from people that have come from the Middle East. How do you answer that, Mustafa?
Look, it's not, but none of them is, if somebody wanted to come in and attack, it's people that are being radicalized that are already here. The challenge is that we have to deal with radicalization, and that's the challenge of our time. If we focus on places where there isn't a problem, then we're taking our eye off the ball. So radicalization of the internet is what we have to deal with for the most part, not people coming across the border. And if you focus on the refugee problem, then we're misleading the public as to where the problem is at.
So what about that? wouldn't the governor's money be, the Texas taxpayers' money be better spent on that issue than fighting the Obama administration on resettlement?
Well, first of all, they're not mutually exclusive. I think you can fight both fronts at the same time. I agree with him that does need to be dealt with, the radicalization over the internet. But I also think that there is a group of folks that will come in through the refugee program that we have to be sensitive to. They're not mutually exclusive.
Let me go to Sally. She's monitoring our social media.
All right, we'll take a look at a couple tweets from both sides of the issue here. First one, Oscar Retta says every governor should do the same and keep these refugees out of their states. So happy Texas is saying no. And then on the flip side, Grace says 41% of the current refugees are children, and some people still want to refuse their entry to the United States.
And so how do we, Jared said, we got 1 minute left. Jared said these are not mutually exclusive, but I don't hear the state of Texas saying anything about let's spend some money on working on the problem from within.
Well, that's the issue. Most national security analysts will tell you that the biggest issue of radicalization is online, and we're not spending enough resources, we're not putting enough intellectual capital because we're too busy making political arguments about people coming on the other side of the border, people coming through as refugees, because that's what ISIS wants you to believe. They want to create terror by creating these false pretenses about security.
We got less than 30 seconds. You got the final thought.
I mean, it makes just common sense to assume that some folks who are part of this refugee program are ISIS individuals that are not here to help us, but instead here to harm us. And when the vetting process is as flawed as it is right now, I don't think we can risk the lives of innocent Texans and sacrifice them on the altar of political correctness.
You say it's flawed, but I don't know that anybody has ever been pulled out of that program to say that we have found you to be in ISIS. And we got to leave it right there. I'm sorry, we got to leave it right there. We'll bring that up on another day. We'll be back in about 20 minutes. We're going to talk about, you guessed it, the election. Stay tuned right now. Go to Facebook Live. We'll be right back, Sally.
All right, and send us a tweet at Sally Mac Fox 26. Let us know what you want to hear from the candidates coming up in tomorrow night's debate.